little while after the police started using force and used lathi charge, the villagers retaliated with pelting stones and big bricks, and the media contingent that was present here too was collateral damage.
Massive crackdown and unprecedented scenes being witnessed here at the Marina Beach.
They were literally imposed inside our protest and stabbing people, hitting brutally, and injured all, even a kids, and even a pregnant lady is inside a ambulance.
Police officials are trying to make sure the situation is calm and better here, but still a large number of youngsters are coming from outside and entering the area inside.
கலவரம், இந்த பிரச்சனை இதெல்லாம் வந்து ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் பண்ண மாட்டாங்க. நீங்களாப்பா ஓகே, ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் பண்ண மாட்டாங்க. எங்கள் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸை பற்றி எங்களுக்கு தெரியும். வேற வேற அமைப்புகள்லாம் உள்ள சேர்ந்துருக்கு. ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் பேரை சொல்லி அவங்க நிறைய தப்பு பண்றாங்க.
They have been protesting for the cause of Jallikattu in a very calm manner. Suddenly today the protests have turned violent. Means we have all our doubts that who is behind this and what kind of miscreants are handling the show now.
What we are hearing right now is that as soon as the assembly was convened, the Chief Minister OPS had tabled the bill. The AIADMK has, however, confirmed that the bill has been passed unanimously.
Well, I'd like to inform our viewers tonight at about 8:30 this evening there will be a press conference held by the Commissioner of Police in Chennai. And there'll be a lot of details in that press conference that we're looking forward to. We'll go over to that press conference live. But in the meantime, Kajal joins me right now on the show. She's live in Chennai. Kajal, what our viewers are going to want to know right now is what is the state of affairs on the streets of Chennai? Is Chennai back to normal? Are things safe? Will schools be reopened tomorrow? Roads that have been closed, buses, will they be back on the road? What are you sensing right now on the streets in Chennai?
Well, as of now, it seems that there is some sort of an uneasy calm because the traffic has started moving. Earlier in the day, there were huge traffic jams or people were deserting the streets because of the violence that was around them. But now the traffic is moving almost freely, and we are being told that the police is keeping a close watch on all the protesters, considering the fact that the last demand of the protesters was about amendment to the PCA Act, and the new act passed by the Tamil Nadu Assembly has already amended that act for the state of Tamil Nadu particularly. So there is no demand really left of the protesters. The leaders who had fronted some of these protests in the past have now gone to Marina, and they are trying to speak with the protesters and asking them to call off the agitation and leave Marina. We are told that a lot of them have left, but there are still people who are waiting at Marina, and the leaders of the protests are actually trying to convince them to leave. Not just that, civil society, celebrities, everyone has appealed for calm and said that now that the act has been passed, they should reconsider continuing with the protest, and they should be going home by now. We are expecting that the situation should come back to normal by tomorrow morning. As of now, no clarity yet on whether the schools will be open tomorrow, because today they had to be suspended midway. But considering that most of the chaos and tension has actually gone down, we are expecting that regular vehicular movement will continue tomorrow morning, and schools also should be open.
You did say, of course, that the leaders of this entire agitation were speaking with protesters in Marina right now, convincing them to go home. Do we know what these protesters want now? Because they've got the amendments that they wanted, like you said. The central government has paid heed. The state government has paid heed. What's left in those demands? Why are they still there? Does anyone know?
Well, it does seem that one of the reasons why people are not going is because there was never any one particular clear leader or a clear group of leaders who were handling these protesters. And what we are also hearing from a lot of sources is that at least since yesterday evening and most of this morning and afternoon, there were a lot of miscreants who had actually mingled along with the protesters. Most of the protesters had, most of the genuine protesters, we are told, had started leaving when the government had announced that in the evening itself the bill will be tabled and also passed. But there were a few miscreants, there were a few party workers also who were there, who are still at that protest venue. And considering the fact that there is no one clear leader or group of leaders, what is actually happening is that one group of people leaves listening to some leader or the other, but the other group does not want to listen to this particular leader, so they don't leave. And this is actually compounding the problem, and the protests seem to be continuing even now, despite the fact that all of their demands have actually been fulfilled.
All right, Kajal, many thanks for joining us. Kajal, they're live in Chennai, giving us an update of what's happening on the ground. We did, of course, see a lot of footage come in during the day of violence, of injuries. A lot of people also looking a little upset with the police having taken the action. But the question that we're asking right now is, could that have been avoided? Given the fact that this Makkal movement was peaceful for several days, for 4 days, completely peaceful, given the numbers that we saw gather on Marina Beach, how did things get out of hand today? Why did the police have to resort to a lathi charge? Why did things get out of hand today and couldn't have been avoided? Should the protesters have left already, or should the government have communicated better? That's the question we're asking. Kailash Vasdev Senior Advocate joins me now. So does Sridhar Pabbisetty of the Namma Bengaluru Foundation. Krishna Saagar Rao, who's from the BJP. Naveen Chomal is a Senior Advocate. Vice Pawar is the former Joint Commissioner of Police, Law and Order, retired in Mumbai. C. Rajashekaran is an advocate who joins us from Chennai. C. Rajashekaran, I'm going to start with you. Here's the question. How did a protest that was gaining steam and popularity for being so peaceful get out of hand today? Could this situation have been avoided?
See, this protest was there for the past 6 days, and we must give it to the youth of the state and all the supporters of Jallikattu. And I was there in the Marina for 4 days, first 4 days. And after that, I'm told, I don't have any proof for that, the protesters came on video and said some people have infiltrated into this crowd and they are creating nonsense issues, and we are not for it. We want only Jallikattu. The students gathered at the Marina were peacefully demonstrating, and they were behaving very good, well, in an expected lines of the police department, and the government also was appreciating it, and the police commissioner had issued a letter saying that the students are cooperating with the police and it is a very good demonstration. Finally, suddenly, I don't know, I was not there. From yesterday, things started to turn totally around 360 degrees it turned, and people started to make so many new slogans that, like, we want separate Tamil Nadu, we want Kaveri water immediately, we want Mullai Periyar Dam to be constructed immediately. All this was not, they wanted an ordinance for Jallikattu, and the ordinance was brought by the Chief Minister and the Prime Minister ensured we get it. Today, the Assembly, they passed it. So we should, what they wanted was given.
Right. Okay, I want to bring in Krishna Saagar Rao here. Krishna Saagar Rao, it's clearly turning political. From what a lot of the voices have told us is that the students actually left after the ordinance was passed, and then it turned into it became murky, it turned into a political issue. This could have easily been avoided.
See, first things first, I think Bharatiya Janata Party welcomes the victory of democracy today. Democracy is all about of the people, by the people and for the people, and the people of Tamil Nadu has got what they wanted through an ordinance which got to be a bill today passed in Assembly. Having said that, there is no place for violence in democratic protests. You can protest you can fight for your rights, but violence is not acceptable, and it just cannot be condoned. So, it always happens like that. I mean, the mob psychology is such that when there are a large number of people congregated at one place, we should appreciate that they were peaceful till about 7 days. And I think when whatever happened in the morning, it happened while the assembly session was on, and the bill was still not passed. So probably the police also should have allowed the mob to stay till the evening, till the bill is passed, and then probably they would have dissipated. But we never know as to whose mistake is that, or if there are any other forces, disruptive forces, who wanted to change the goalposts, who wanted to set new targets and new goals for the mob and try to control that mob for their ulterior motives, maybe would have joined these forces. So I think there are multiple angles to this particular violence which has happened, and unsettled environment which has happened there, disturbed environment. I think the police have been successful at that in containing it by the end of the day, but I think a lot of water has gone under the over the bridge.
Right.
We should be very careful.
Let me take this question to IC Pawar, who's a retired police officer himself. Mr. Pawar,
have these large congregations.
Mr. Pawar, we noticed a couple of things about what happened today. It was not just Chennai; it was also in Madurai, where a peaceful protest up till now suddenly turned violent. Now, explain to us and to our viewers how those decisions are made by the police. Should the police have, waited till the end of the day? How does that call get taken to use what you call minimum force?
No, the circumstances under which the force has been used is not very clear. The reason that why police would resort to lathi charge, there has to be some logical answer for that, because police do not resort to such things at their own. The situation demands, that is why they respond. Otherwise, they know that there could be any inquiry, they will have to face inquiry, they will have to face the consequences, and whatever might be the police forces in the country. But normal course, the crowd is not treated like this because they are not sadists. Police people are not sadists. Now, why this was required to be done, there are few things. One, that could be that there was no leader to lead them in a proper direction. Could be that, as my learned friend was telling right now, that could be their infiltration by some vested interest people to create the trouble that normally happens whenever there is a peaceful demonstration or peaceful agitation. Protesters, somebody enters, infiltrates with them, and then creates some trouble and provoke the crowd, and in response to that, police has to act. Police can't be silent spectators. And the fact that after the lathi charge, the tear gas has been used, that means the mob was really, I can guess that the crowd might have been violent.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Right, let me bring in Kailash Vasdev. Kailash Vasdev, could the state government have handled this situation better? Could they have communicated better with the people on the beach, with the protesters, explained to them that things are in process and they'll be able to, they were working on results around the clock?
See, the situation is this. You had a very peaceful march or a peaceful congregation of thousands of people over a period of a week. Today, when the bill was presented to the Tamil Nadu Assembly, after the ordinance had been passed by the governor, there should have been a quietus to this whole issue, because the passing of an ordinance is the making of law. The making of law is a permanent action of government to put an end to controversy. Suddenly hearing about violence at this point of time when everything has taken place becomes a bit of a disturbing trend, because that is an indication that non-interested persons are suddenly flaming a violent situation after having achieved the purpose of the people who were there in a non-violent form. One really doesn't know what happened on the ground, but I don't know if the police should have stopped its actions or withheld actions. The police may have reacted. It could also be that there was a situation where the persons who were instigating this trouble, because as per what we've seen in the news, police stations were attacked, things were building up all over the state. So the police might have decided, let's put an end to this, because if it is happening in Coimbatore and other towns, it is a question of a flare-up, because Jallikattu is now an issue of the entire Tamils in the state. So there could have been an overall fallout for which the police took this action to prevent any further fallouts relating to Jallikattu in any form. In addition to that, as one sees, there were other issues also which were being raised by the people who had congregated to ask for the removal or the negation of the Supreme Court judgment. One really doesn't know, and one shouldn't come to conclusions until there are some facts available.
Yes.
But what has happened today is unfortunate, even by the people who had congregated in a peaceful manner, and also the action by the police, if it was instigated and asked for.
Well, Rajashekaran, I want to ask you this. We've had reports all day today about various leaders visiting Marina to explain to the protesters the progress that's happening. We've had a former judge visit the beach to explain to the protesters what's happening, to sort of make them understand that progress is being made. But somehow, this group of people, which I understand are still on the beach, have not taken anybody's word for it. It's almost like they trust no one.
Yes, this is the most sad part and unfortunate incident after this bill has been passed in the assembly, and this demonstration should gracefully be withdrawn with accepting this as their victory, and they should celebrate it. They should not fail from achieving such a historic moment. I don't understand why these protesters, 3,000 people are there in Marina, and what they are up to. I'm really confused. I don't understand what they are up to. They have to go home. They should Jallikattu bill has become a permanent act, and they should celebrate it. That is my wish. I appeal to them.
All right, they should celebrate at this point. This is not the time for violence. This is actually a time for celebration. I also want to ask Vishnu Prasad. Vishnu Prasad, okay, we don't have Vishnu Prasad right now. Sridhar Pabbisetty, this has also, you know, there's been a fair amount of support for this in Bangalore and other parts of South India. This is actually a sort of victory from a democratic point of view. But like we've seen happen in other cities, and we saw it happen in Bangalore once, there were people who used these sort of things as an opportunity to cause trouble.
Absolutely. I think keeping law and order in control and making sure that the protests are peaceful are not easy task. It's indeed very, very difficult and compelling challenge. And I do hope you know, the protesters as well as the police officials had a constant line of communication going around this. And what has happened in Chennai today is very, very depressing and very, very sad, that in a democracy where people, it's a government of the people and by the people and for the people, and the arm of the government, which is the police, has to resort to lathi charge to quell an otherwise peaceful protest. So it's very, very important that as somebody earlier suggested, that a thorough investigation is done to see as to why did this condition deteriorate. And I'm sure you know, that will be looked into. Having said this, I think it also needs some political leadership to kind of reach out to people who are protesting there and help them understand what was being attempted and how it will pan out. Some amount of communication, if that had happened yesterday, and these fears assuaged for all the people who are protesting and requesting them to dismantle in a peaceful manner, that would have been good. And I think some of the earlier request was to see what kind of legislation would be passed, and if that could be kind of shared with them in some form, that would have been good. So there are lessons to be learned from all sides, from the protesters to say how did the situation go out of hand, for the intelligence officials, I'm sure from the who would also be part of the crowd, they would have immersed themselves in the crowd to figure out and see how did this go out of hand, and for the police department to see how this crackdown could have been done better.
All right, from information that we're getting in from Chennai, from our reporters, we understand that there is an uneasy calm, like we were told, in the city of Chennai right now. We've spoken with the traffic police. For our viewers in Chennai, we've been told that the traffic police is working through the night to clear out roads that are blocked currently, and they're confident that normalcy will return tomorrow morning. We've also spoken to City Transport. There were some buses that were damaged today, but the City Transport Authority is confident that buses and trains will ply as normal normal beginning tomorrow morning. We still don't have a word right now on schools and colleges officially. Some of them have decided to remain closed. We'll bring you that information as quickly as we can get it. But for the time being, roads and public transport will be back to normal tomorrow morning. Kailash Vasdev, do you think perhaps that there could have been a better control kept on this situation by the state government, better communication, even for a protest that had no specific leader? If the state government communicated better, this entire situation could have been avoided?
Very difficult to say whether the state government which was compelled to take this action, or was there a flare-up. 7 days you had no problems. Everything was peaceful, quiet. When the ordinance is packed, the act has gone to the legislature for being considered. At that point, to have a flare-up is an indication that there were some other actions which might have taken place in the background. Possibly the flare-ups, as I said earlier, in other towns might have compelled the state government to say, look, let's bring this to an end because we've done what we had to, now let these people go home. So I wouldn't venture out to say the state government made a mistake, or whether the police made a mistake, or the people who had congregated made a mistake. There seems to be some kind of a gross misunderstanding someplace which has led to this odd situation. I mean, it is tragic that a good movement by the people for the purposes of attaining a goal, which is in the cultural ethos, has gone to an extent of damaging the cultural ethos today. Because everybody is now saying, look at these people, they came up for the purposes which were good, and now they have taken a direction which is wrong. You'll give everybody a chance and a handle to criticize the entire action. It is not making sense, really. You know, the state government could have handled it. I think they restrained themselves for a week. These gentlemen and these persons should have also understood that the purpose was served. You got a permanent solution to the problem. Let's go home.
Yes. In fact, you know,
that's how it is.
We've heard reports
you cannot possibly today turn on and point fingers at everybody.
Right. We've heard reports of political sloganeering, of demands of Kaveri water. So obviously the purpose that you're talking about, Kailash Vasdev, got diluted somewhere during the day today, where even the emergency meet of the legislature was not enough. And these were people who wanted more. Naveen Chomal, obviously situations like this can very easily turn into rooms of political vendetta.
I fully agree with you,
What happens is, when you have this kind of when you have a full-fledged congregation of this kind, where you have people who have worked hard to attain a victory, it is not difficult to sway a group of people at the drop of a hat. And that seems to have what has happened over here. You've moved away from a cultural goal to a political direction, which one doesn't understand why.
Absolutely. Naveen Chomal?
Somebody has instigated this in a very wrong manner.
Absolutely. Naveen?
Yeah. I really support your concerns, because please appreciate, this has been a very unique case in the history of our country, where first of all the apex court has passed some orders prohibiting it. But ultimately, as the constitution admits that the people are supreme in the country, and when the people came out with their own desire and the will, ultimately the Supreme Court's decision had to be suppressed, and the government was supposed to pass the law, amend the PCA Act. So ultimately it was the victory of our constitution, and how the constitutional process went on in a very peaceful manner. But I agree with what our Honorable Guest Sri Pawar has said, that when the police were forced to take some action, that means it was actually a reaction. The mob was actually getting out of control. So we have to understand the political undercurrents of the entire moment. And as your correspondent has rightly said, that there was no central single leadership controlling the moment. So there are people from different walks of life coming together, each one protesting for the purpose of one cause, that is Jallikattu. But then we started seeing protests against the government, particularly the chief minister, and then demands were like increased, and it was deviated. So there was a political undercurrent.
Should there be an investigation now, Mr. YC Pawar, Mr. Rajashekaran, should there be an investigation now into what actually happened? Because there has been loss of public property. There have been injuries that have been been caused. I don't know if Krishna Saagar Rao can hear me. Mr. Pawar, should there be an investigation now?
Yeah, no. There is no question of should be or should not.
Yeah, you asking me if
part of follow-up of the consequence of the use of force. When there is bridge of violence, certain offences do take place and they need to be investigated. Secondly, the incidence is such that in all probabilities, government, instead of getting the credit, now is likely to get a discredit. So government would like to install an inquiry, magistrate inquiry probably, or maybe that if demand is there, judicial inquiry to find out the causes of the.
Right. Let me take that question to Krishna Saagar Rao, who I understand can hear us now. Mr. Rao, should there be an investigation as to what happened today? Because everyone we speak to seems to say that there were these anti-social elements that came into the protest, but nobody knows for sure.
I think there will be naturally a departmental inquiry in such a reaction and in such a kind of a usage of force on such a large congregation. So I think it will be a natural process. But having said that, I can very clearly see that there is a plot, a deviant plot, which was initiated by intruders today. Because there were placards, there were very questionable placards, asking for division of the country and all that. So it clearly shows that there were infiltration of some real antisocial elements, whether it is by design or by default, because worldwide when there are large congregations, these kind of things tend to happen. But having said that, I think we have to also look at the root cause of this entire protest and the mess which got created today. The PETA, the foreign NGO, which is based out of USA, I think should learn a lesson. It is also a big lesson for the judiciary of this country to understand that we cannot be selective in terms of how we pass orders. I'm not, with all the due respect to the judiciary, I think we should look at, there are some areas which are not up for scrutiny judicially in a country like ours, which is so diverse, which is so ancient, the rituals, the traditions, the cultural heritage.
Allow me to interrupt you for a second. When you say
NGOs from NGOs from foreign lands are totally irrelevant in this country. They just don't understand what happens in this country. They don't understand civilization. They don't understand the traditions. They don't understand the ethos of this country.
Okay, let me just stop you there for a second, Mr. Rao. I want a clarification on what you're saying. First of all, a lot of these foreign NGOs have Indian employees. I think that's a sweeping generalization to say that no foreign NGO is relevant in India at all.
No,
but I'm more concerned about what you said about
the... They can be employees.
I'm concerned about what you said about the judiciary.
Purely a defeatist organization.
Naveen Chomal, see, the judiciary at the end of the day...
What did they achieve in the last 30 years?
The judiciary at the end of the day admitted a PIL and heard it out for nearly a decade. In various courts before the Supreme Court finally heard out his judgment. So to turn around and say that there are some things that are just out of the purview of the courts, and this, I don't know if that's entirely fair. And I'll allow the two lawyers on the panel to respond to that. Naveen?
Thank you very much. I actually agree with the line what taken by Sri Krishna Saagar Rao, because today we are in a position or other is a situation where the nation must also analyze the role of judiciary, because the maturity what is required from the judiciary is lacking somewhere. There is a very hasty overreach of the judiciary, so it should be basically taken into consideration. See, this particular moment is a unique case in our history where the hasty decision of judiciary, which can call it to be shallow and not with a deep thinking, was defeated by the desire of the public, the will of the public. So there have been many cases. The latest case which I can point out is the case of Tista Settle Ward. There was a time when Tista Settle used to get orders from the judiciary on mere asking, and today our channels are exposing what that person has been anti-national. So there have been many cases where the judiciary has got swayed away by the anti-nationals and their false propaganda. So judiciary has.
You're making a lot of very sweeping. You're making a lot of very sweeping allegations here. I bring in Kailash Vasdev. Kailash Vasdev, let me just point out. Kailash Vasdev, we're talking about the Supreme Court here in this particular case. Here are the words being used: hasty, shallow, overreaching, and easily swayed away by anti-nationals. I think that's fairly dangerous to be saying on national television.
No, but before the major damage is done, we have
let
to
Mr. Vasdev respond.
Wake up.
Let Mr. Vasdev. Let Mr. Vasdev respond.
You see, it's like this. Let us not make such sweeping statements against the courts. Such sweeping statements are not going to get us any place. Yes, I'm willing to accept the fact that the courts make mistakes. We made a mistake. There was a mistake in Zahira Sheikh's case as a witness. She turned out to be a lady of questionable antecedents later on in different points of time. So the Supreme Court felt it was an error. There have been occasions when the court has been misled or has led itself into a situation of an embarrassment. In this case also there is a situation, it is not a question of embarrassment, but where the court was led into a direction to feel that the cultural ethos was not as important as that of preventing cruelty to the bulls. So here you have to balance situations. To turn around and say that the Supreme Court is misled, is taken away, gets carried away by foreign NGOs and all, I don't think that is right, because it is many a times an NGO which has restored rights, and then the Supreme Court has come to the rescue of the unheard of people, or people who can't be heard and can't afford to come to courts, and give them a lot of succor. You will find a whole lot of judgments. Just see the environment jurisdiction, food for children jurisdiction, treatment of the blind. Oh, there are so many issues where the court is getting rid of noxious fuels, for example. Leaded fuels were got rid of, CNG came in, all sorts of things have taken place. The court has done a lot of good also.
Fair.
To hold it against it just because of 1 or 2 or 3 odd cases, I think is very wrong.
Absolutely.
Yes, we must realize that the judiciary does not have the kind of powers.
Right. Well, Mr. Vasdev, I want to bring in Sridhar Pabbisetty, who works with NGOs. Right. I want to bring in Sridhar Pabbisetty, and then Krishna Saagar Rao will you can respond to what everyone's saying. Sridhar Pabbisetty, to call NGOs anti-national and to say that they don't understand and they have no business in India, is that a sweeping generalization?
I think it's an unfortunate statement that's being made. I think we all should understand and learn to coexist and work together for building a better country. Nation building is not an overnight journey, and it's not just a personal foray of just the politicians or the bureaucrats or just the judiciary. All of us have to coexist hand in hand, and there have been landmark judgments that have come out of actions by NGOs. So I think it's unfair for us to paint a blanket statement on all NGOs. And as I said earlier in the Jallikattu debate, it's about looking with the modern lens and modern eyes and the laws that are prevalent today of cultural practices. Modernizing cultural practices doesn't make us discard any traditions. Why should we look at it in a white or black? And if I were to say, it's probably the lazy legislation that precipitated this crisis rather than an NGO trying to do something else. I think it's important for us to look at it and say what was happening from 2014 till now.
Absolutely. Vishnu Prasad joins us of the Congress Party right now. Vishnu Prasad, a statement, yes. Krishna Saagar, you respond to Vishnu Prasad, and I'll put the two of you in the frame together. Vishnu Prasad, Krishna Saagar Rao saying that NGOs are completely useless. They don't understand India and they have no business in this country. Do you agree? Vishnu Prasad, can you hear me?
Okay, Faith, can I come in?
Yeah, all right. Krishna Saagar Rao, go ahead.
Yeah, Faith, let me clarify for the sake of the panel members and also for the viewers that I didn't mean all NGOs or all foreign NGOs. I'm saying foreign NGOs like PETA. These are NGOs which seem to have a hidden agenda than the main agenda, which is public, because what actually they want to accomplish when there is 70% of the world is non-vegetarian and the rest of the 20 is in between and 10% of vegetarians, and these people talk about ethical treatment to animals when they come from a land where 92% of them are non-vegetarians, and their habits and their traditions are hunting, gaming across the country. Now tell me one victory apart from the Jallikattu ban which PETA has across the world. Could they get the Spanish bullfight off? Could they get the Mexican bull raging off? Could they get the Venezuela cockfights off? What did they do? Could they stop the abattoirs which are mechanized and kill animals by thousands, even in India? Did they even touch any other religious festivities where there is gore and blood, not just to animals but also to human beings? Why is this selective approach? Ask PETA to make one statement against the Muslim festivals which has a lot of violence. and we will see what is the authenticity of this particular organization. So these are all bull
so you're suggesting this was entirely communal then? You're
organizations.
Giving it, I want to point out to you, Krishna Saagar, that you're giving this entire thing a communal line.
Of course it is communal.
You're giving this entire thing a communal line.
I'm not making sweeping statements. Of course it's communal. Their agenda is to kill the traditions and cultural heritage of a nation like ours. So we have to understand that. They're not just playing with us, they're playing with many countries which has asked them to play in China, asked them to play in Bangladesh, asked them to play in Pakistan. They cannot do it. It's such a easy sitting duck, India, for all these NGOs which has multiple agendas and not the one which is public. And I strongly believe that, and it is not a sweeping statement.
It sounds like a sweeping statement. I have, in fact, with me Akshay Reddy of the AIADMK, who joins us on the phone line right now. Akshay Reddy, thank you.
Come in here for
yes, Mr. Vasdev, I'll come back to you. I just want a quick update now from Akshay Reddy of the AIADMK. Ma'am, thank you for joining us. I just wanted to understand, from the point of view of the government in Chennai at this point and the law and order situation in Chennai, can you give us an update for our viewers on when things are expected to return to normalcy?
Thank you. I just have 1 minute on this call, so I'm going to be very quick.
Yes.
The protests were conducted by the commission in the first place. We respected the spirit of democracy, let the students protest. We heard their voices, acted upon it, effectively 4 days with an ordinance and an emergency session today. But anti-social elements have infiltrated the students with petrol bombs and long knife-like swords, which the intelligence picked up on and fully negotiated with the crowd, refused to leave because of people instigating them. There were a lot of anti-social elements, burning the national flag, burning police stations, and throwing petrol bombs in vehicles. We had to crack down, and we have to ensure the safety of 7 crore plus people of our state. The Chief Minister is responsible for health, education, safety, infrastructure. We cannot have a few miscreants hold the state to ransom. The state will return to normalcy. I think the people's demand has been met. Respect post having changed. We hope for the best. I think tonight everything should return to normalcy.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, Afsar Reddy of the AIADMK giving us an update there. They're saying that there were some people on the beach holding sharp knives and possibly petrol bombs, and that's why the police had to take the action that they took. They're confident from the point of view of the government that normalcy will return as soon as possible. I want to go back to the debate. Kailash Vasdev, you wanted to respond to what was being said, that there is a communal angle to what PETA is doing in India. Krishna Saagar making that allegation.
It is no. There's an answer to this. I tend to agree with what the gentleman said. We are invoking a court system in a democracy which is very open and accepts all sorts of views. In many a country where there is an absolutism and the courts are not so open, not followed by a democratic pattern in its entirety, there it is very difficult for these individual organizations to go and invoke those jurisdictions. In Pakistan, in China, as rightly said, in many of the Muslim countries, you don't have an open court system like we have over here. Here what happens is the courts are then utilized as a weapon or as a sort of a means to attain an object which is different. To say that PETA is going to be an organization which is going to work for the benefit of animals, I think is a big oxymoron by itself. Their actions are not basically for the purposes of protecting the animals, because in countries where the animals are actually consumed, they can't do anything about it. It is in our system that they're attacking all sorts of things. I mean, the other day they mentioned hornbill. Hornbill has got nothing to do with the hornbill bird. It's a social and it's a cultural ethos. You want to challenge that. So they've got to be very careful as to where they're doing. And now, having seen what has happened in the Jallikattu matter, I think the courts will also be very worried about introducing and accepting claims by organizations which have now been proved to be as institutions of questionable antecedents. I use the word very strongly because PETA has now certainly turned out to be an institution which we haven't heard of in the past 7-8 days.
All right,
if they had something strong to say, they should have come forward, and now they say they will challenge the ordinance, they will challenge the act, they can choose to do so. But it has not turned out to be an organization whose actions are above board.
Well, Sridhar Pabbisetty, do you want to respond to that?
There has been too much.
Well, I don't have a brief for PETA, and I think maybe Magicbricks should reach out to PETA to defend itself on what's being said. I'm only saying that the blanket statements are uncalled for, and they have used the process that's allowed in our constitution. And I think the governments also could have done much more during the hearing process when the Supreme Court was hearing these cases, if they had anything against the process in which this was being done. And I think we all have a role to play in the society, and we should just
in fact,
focus on the issue rather than name calling any one particular organization or institution.
Krishna Saagar Rao, allow me to just look for a minute to look at the other side of the coin and be devil's advocate here, because like Sridhar pointed out, PETA is not here to defend itself. But to be fair, there is a judicial system available to us in this country, and anyone is open and you're allowed by the law to approach the courts for whatever you think you might decide is unjust or unfair. And it's up to the courts on whether or not the court wants to hear you, whether or not the court wants to admit your plea, and then finally give you a judgment. So there's nothing that PETA has done here in this case that's outside the purview of the law. It was at the end of the day a decision made by our Supreme Court, the highest court of our country. So Krishna Saagar Rao, at the end of the day, whatever might have been PETA's motivation, they used legal means and they used judicial means.
Yeah, but what is the end, Faye? That is the question I'm asking. I'm asking with full responsibility. I'm not getting carried away. I'm asking with full responsibility. The means is fine, but what is the end? Why is it that cockfighting and bullfight, it's not even bullfight, bull taming are being targeted, which is a ritual, one-day ritual in the entire year? Where is the harm? What is the comparison? What is the degree of pain being caused to the animal?
But technically, Krishna Saagar Rao, these are all arguments that could have been and might have been made in court.
Let me just finish.
Yes.
Let me just finish. What I'm saying is, yes, as a learned gentleman on the panel already said, the courts are being misled and sometimes not properly represented probably. We never know, because it is not necessary that somebody who represents that particular case can represent better than Abhishek Singhvi, who is a multi-millionaire advocate for PETA. Now the Congress goes onto the road and then protests and says we want Jallikattu, while Jairam Ramesh, the Environment Minister, makes amendments to the Cruelty of Animals Act and gets the bull included because of the PETA lobbying. So these are the lobbying firms, as a gentleman rightly said. These are people with questionable credentials. They are from Virginia, USA. How much is the history of United States in comparison to the history, heritage and civilization of India? And if they are trying to do something really good, we welcome them. But what are they targeting? As I said, why are not they targeting the animals which are being manually slaughtered and mechanically slaughtered? And what kind of slaughterhouses do we have in this country? What is the treatment of animals across the world? And what are the victories which can be outlined by this? I'm asking very clear questions, no blanket statements. So if I ask logical questions, it doesn't mean I'm insulting an organization. I'm saying, what is the agenda of PETA? Where did they go in the last 30 years? It was established in 1980. Now we are in 2017. Well, I want a list of accomplishments of PETA across the world. Let them come up with it. But I 100% feel it is very dangerous. Faye, just give me 1 second.
Yes. Okay, finish what you're saying, Mr. Rao. Finish what you're saying.
Faye, what I'm saying is it sets a very bad and dangerous precedent, because if this kind of congregations can be called for by meaningless bans which actually hurts and attacks the fundamentals of our religion and religious freedom and constitutional rights of practicing freedom, practicing religious rituals and customs, then there are bigger things which can happen when these congregations happen. So it is very dangerous that we should not have these kind of orange and pink revolutions like what we had the Spring Revolution in Arab countries. These can go anywhere. Right. And that's what happened yesterday.
I just want to point out to you, Krishna Saagar Rao, you're bringing up religion and you're bringing up religion a second time.
Mindless agenda
Krishna
of one
Saagar Rao,
NGO.
You're bringing up religion a second time. I want to point out to you, Jallikattu and Pongal are not necessarily, they're harvest festivals, they're not necessarily linked to any religion. I want to correct that one more time, but YC Pawar, we're having this conversation, we've heard the BJP's mentioned the Congress, the DMK, and said anti-national elements, anti-social elements. You saw the footage of the police officers who were working in Chennai today. Again, there's politics being played at the cost of our police officers.
That generally happens in this country. The police are made victim and people act in such fashion that vested interested parties take law into hand, force the police force to take the action and then criticize the government and police department. This has been happening here in this country. And whatever I am seeing here on the screen, I am sure that there was something wrong with the crowd, and crowd had forced the police to take action, and I have no reservations in saying that.
All right, Cloud. Kailash Vasdev, go ahead.
We have to understand there's a difference between being vigilant and the other one being vigilante.
Hello, can I talk?
Right, okay. Mr. Vasdev, just 1 second. Mr. Vasdev, 1 second. I have Venkat on the phone line from Chennai. Venkat wants to just say one thing to us. Venkat, go ahead. What would you like to add to the conversation?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Actually, this is the main thing. Up to today morning itself, the agenda is very, very, very smooth. Including the police also supported very well with the students. But after the government policy, they given the Jallikattu freedom and like that way, then immediately they get the ego problem. Because of that ego problem, they give the instruction, I think so. They given the instruction to the police to remove that everything immediately today itself. Whenever you are telling to the police one word, they will take 10 words. So this way, the police itself, they done everything. Even in some channels I seen that one, the police himself is putting the fire on the auto rickshaw.
Okay, all right. So Venkat believes that the protesters were actually peaceful, but we're seeing visuals that suggest differently at this point. Kailash Vasdev, go ahead. You were saying something.
No, what I was saying was, when this particular crowd came into, the group of people came in here to oppose Jallikattu's judgment in the Supreme Court, it was a vigilant group. A vigilant group is a very interesting group of people who are vigilant to protect rights and to move it ahead. When you become a vigilante, you create havoc into everybody because then your motives are very questionable. Today, seeing what is happening in the NGOs and many of them, which for purpose of personal propagation, seek protection. See, unfortunately, the government today has had to cancel a couple of thousand licenses of NGOs. They've chosen to do so after an investigation spread over 2 years. These are the kind of situations which become very disturbing because these groups which approach the Supreme Court on the grounds of fundamental rights, protection of rights, seeking rights of various groups of people and various classes. When this starts happening at a group of people who have eventually been declared to be wrong or incorrect or have been found to be indulging in activities which an NGO should not be doing, and the court has acted upon those particular representations of those people, the problems arise. We have seen it time and again in the past 10 years in the judiciary, especially nowadays in the Supreme Court, which entertains petitions directly under Article 32. That's your right to invoke the Supreme Court's jurisdiction directly. That we are making mistakes, and we have now got to be cautious. The courts have got to exercise a certain amount of restraint in entertaining all sorts of petitions. The other day, the Chief Justice had to mention in court that people are treating the Supreme Court to be a joke. It's a very sad commentary when you hear this from the Chief Justice in his anguish, saying that, look, don't treat the court in this manner. It's got much more serious business to carry out. So if you see all those things which have now come in and have now become a part of a judicial system, we have got to now look at situations in a different light. And I hope the judges and the courts all over the country, whether a subordinate court or the Supreme Court, will sort of wake up to the fact that there is much more to India than just a single group of people raising issues.
Rajashekaran, I know that you want to comment. You're a lawyer as well.
Very wide-ranging point.
Right. Rajashekaran, are the courts overreaching at this point? Should organizations like PETA not be allowed to approach the courts with the kind of issues?
Yes, one would think so.
Yes. Rajashekaran.
No, I cannot say that
somebody has an NGO
approach the court.
Rajashekaran is answering the question. Go ahead, Rajashekaran.
See, it is the right of any organization which is allowed to function in the country. If you don't want PETA in India, the government has all the prerogative right to ban PETA to enter India. That is up to the government. But if they are allowed to participate in all this animal welfare movement as they claim so, I don't know what is the activity, what they are doing, and I don't know about their credentials. But the fact of the matter is, for the past 7 days, as our senior advocate was mentioning, they have not come out with any proper defense from their side. And they are only running from one studio to another, saying that the cruelty to animals is happening and we are there to save the animals. All this stuff doesn't hold good. Of course, we have to wait and watch how the government is going to act now. And the central government at the center and the state government have done a wonderful job by passing this ordinance. And the state government has tabled it in the assembly. They have given us the act now. Now we have to legally fight it if somebody goes to the court. But the fact remains, definitely the courts will take all this into consideration and not listen to one group, which is, they call them as PETA, PFA, animal lovers, activists, all this stuff. So we have to wait and watch how the things develop. It's too early to speculate.
Sridhar Pabbisetty, after which Krishna Saagar Rao can respond. Sridhar Pabbisetty, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think we should trust our institutions of governance much more than what I think we are trying to paint them with. The courts apply their mind, the courts listen to all parties, and in this case they listen to the governments as well and the various stakeholders, and they've applied their mind and they've arrived at a decision. If any of the constituents are not happy with it, they can always go back to the Supreme Court for a review. And I think having failed in doing what they had to do then, now coming and just casting aspersions on the applicant, the Supreme Court, various courts, the legislative process is all unfortunate. I think let us strengthen and play our roles very, very constructively. If you look at it, it's one institution called Association for Democratic Reforms.
No, but Krishna Saagar Rao
that's required for the criminal antecedents of the people who are standing for elections.
Mr. Rajashekaran, Krishna Saagar Rao actually did cast aspersions. Not you. It doesn't mean you. Krishna Saagar Rao responds to that.
The Karnataka government to give water. The Tamil Nadu government and the people of the state stood by the order of the court. We never violated. So come on, we're making allegations against the people of the state, and the government is not fair. We obey the
Let me speak.
Krishna Saagar Rao, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. See, Faye, I wish, the panelist who spoke just now, I think looks like an idealist. I really wish the systems and the framework and institutions are so free and so independent and so righteous. It's not. That's why a very learned man on the panel also said that courts can also make mistakes, just like any other institution. But when some mistake of this big impact happens, and then when there is an unprecedented congregation of people, it sets a model for others to follow, even if a Supreme Court order tomorrow comes out to be right and real and true and justified. Then what happens? Then we will have anarchy, and people think that they can muscle Supreme Court orders and reverse it locally at the state level, and politicians will fall into line because they will not be able to go against the popular demand. So we will go into a full-scale anarchy. That is what I'm trying to warn, because trust me on this one, as I say today, that there will be another congregation of this size very soon on another agenda in another state, because there is a successful model already set in Tamil Nadu. It's a very scary proposition, and I cannot speak for the government, but from the party's perspective, I really wish we represented the government to ban these kind of foreign NGOs from this land.
So hang on, what you're saying, Krishna Saagar Rao, is that because of the Supreme Court decision, there was the kind of agitation that we saw on the streets of Chennai, that might actually become a successful model for others to adopt. So you are disregarding the Supreme Court's wisdom to make its own decisions. You're saying we have to remove NGOs like PETA in order to avoid situations like this in the further? Naveen Chomal?
I'm not saying it. Faye, please don't put words in my mouth. I said with all due respect to Supreme Court, we cannot challenge Supreme Court, for God's sake. But what I'm saying is, what if the Supreme Court's order is not in tune with the cultural ethos, traditions and aspirations of a certain set of people, and that too such a large chunk of people, that is one entire state. And then what happened today is exactly the opposite. I didn't do it. The government of Tamil Nadu did against Supreme Court today. So now how are they going to, now what is Supreme Court going to do is something which we all have to watch and wait.
See, continuing from what Krishna Saagar is saying.
I am not disrespecting the Supreme Court.
No, it's not like disrespecting Supreme Court, but what happens in reality is that the organizations like PETA are having financial powers and they are far more well organized. So in Supreme Court there is an unequal duel. Those people are represented by professional and skilled lawyers. Whereas for the general public, there is no lawyer in the Supreme Court.
It sounds like to me that both of you all are saying that someone who has the financial ability will have an advantage in the Supreme Court. That again, according to me, what you're saying effectively is questioning the ability of the Supreme Court to decide based on an argument.
Supreme Court is ultimately based on the.
You said Supreme Court will decide based on the financial ability of the person making the plea. Unfortunately,
higher lawyers of high caliber.
All right. We have to wrap this up. We have to wrap this up right now. But this is indeed a worrying trend that we're going to keep an eye on. If people are actually standing up against the Supreme Court and holding governments to ransom to change rules, then what sort of precedents does that set in our country? Thanks for watching.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magicbricks Now. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magicbricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/Magicbricks Now.